Hello. This is 220 GSM paper. And I think you could see the work in my last video. So recently how I've been making paper works, because my work is really about layering and about traces, about a reflection of space and time, and embodying these forces. It's embodying forces that we can and cannot see and connecting them into one place. So it's almost like a replication of the human condition and of how we live on Earth. It's more in line with mythology and that kind of way of thinking, where you have these stories which are, even if they're not true in a strict scientific sense, they are still true and they still hold validity because it's true to how we live and it's true to how we experience things, even if it is like complete fantasy. So that's how I've been approaching making, kind of representing or creating these almost dreamscapes. Like, I don't know what you would call them, but I certainly do use a really strong perception and really strong depth value. So it's like I use these and they're both, it's like in conception they're purely metaphysical, but I'm bringing them into a physical realm. And that is not only due to the fact that an art object is a physical object, like this paper has its own life and will decay over time, not for, hundreds of years, but it will decay just on a different time scale to us. So it's not only bringing it to a connection of physicality because of that, but also because of what I depict on the surface. So it's an experience. It's not this picture set in a vacuum, because it is a collection of all of these things and all of these ideas. I suppose that's what I'm talking about when I say traces. So what I had been doing, using paper to section off things. When working on my larger canvases, I'll use the paper to block out areas when spray painting, or if I want a really crisp edge, I'll use a piece of paper to fix that edge. So in that regard, it is really based on time and space. It's like I'm physically building on this thing, what my life is right now, like what my studio practice is. I'm essentially meditating in this space, but in a physical way. It's like I'm embodying the entire space, my entire vessel. It's not merely about, it's like with an image, all you're doing there is activating your mind, but through what I'm doing, and when it is more experiential, you're activating your entire body and mind. So there is no disconnect, and you're really kind of acknowledging what you are just as a human and as a mammal living on Earth. Like I was saying about mythology, is that all comes into play because that is primarily acknowledging just what you are, how you experience the Earth, like having two eyes, being able to see the range of color that we see, being able to see just what we see in terms of universal qualities that we can't see. Atoms, for example, we can't see the minute detail. Our perception kind of blurs over everything that is entirely necessary for our survival. Things like that. We obviously have a really specific and particular way of seeing the universe, which really has nothing to do with how it actually exists. I read The Order of Time a few months ago, and it's really a less metaphysical way talking about the same thing. Whereas there is no such thing as linear time outside of our perception. That is a result of our blurring and being incapable of observing the universe in all of its detail. The time is just entropy and the heating up of things, which creates change. That's what we witness as linear time. The entire concept of time is sort of a human-made sense-making apparatus of this, which I think is why I've been not fixated, but somewhat interested in the idea of death. He talks about it somewhat that, you know, it's such a pillar of our society because it is just a reflection of time, and it's this inner turmoil of the human that we can never escape time, like we can never escape change. So I'm just finding that really interesting. I think previously I sort of disregarded it, or I just never realized the impact that it has, not even necessarily on our daily lives, but just fundamentally on how we view the world and how we. So you can see here, that is what I was talking about. So you can see here, that's what I was talking about with the paper being sectioned off or using the paper to section off things to get a hard edge. It just makes things a lot easier, especially when you want a really smooth and almost expressionistic looking brushstroke and surface. You can't achieve that and get a crisp edge, so you need to put some paper down. All of this talk, I suppose I'm just trying to... This is why layering and the way that I work, it's not just the pictures that I create, but it's the physical way in which I work are so important, which is why I started videoing them. There's so much more to it as well, but I just have no idea if what I'm saying is in any way legible. Yeah. I'm just presuming it is. I think I'm speaking pretty layman's terms. When I write, that's another kettle of fish. Just because I read so much, it's really hard not to get into really specific jargon. I don't know why, I'm really, really bad at just presuming that there's a level of understanding over people, but like, why would anyone who isn't just a massive nerd know about this stuff? I still just presume that there is a basic level of understanding and then get trapped in this highly jargoned, really academic speaking, which is not useful to anyone. And then you get into the whole like inaccessibility debate. Who is academia made for? Like, should it be inaccessible? Should it be an aspiring kind of level of knowledge, or should it be accessible to everyone because you're just sectioning off the divide and making everything into a socio-political debate? It's something I've been thinking about a lot. But I think I've been thinking about it a lot because I've been seeing, I think over the course of like a few months at the start of the year, art is being really inaccessible and elitist, but now I'm starting to think that it isn't, and that it is just a societal approach to art, and it is this like along the same lines as mysticism and mythologies. It's something so incredibly valuable to us, like to the human experience, but because it is not secular or not a part of the positivism, it just gets pushed along the wayside because it's not true in that sense, but it's not trying to be true in that sense. Like, they're not contradictory to one another. It's occupying a different realm to science. It's occupying the realm of experience. But I feel like there's a move back to that sort of thinking now. But then you get the issue of, well, can we move back to that way of thinking in a way that is good and productive? Or have we lost, I guess, the wisdom that accompanies those stories so you can actually depict them and see them for what they are? I don't know.